I want to talk about this with retired U.S. Army Major General and CNN military analyst James Spider Marks, and I'm joined here in Washington by Jeremy Bash. He was the Chief of Staff to Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, also worked at the CIA as well. I want to start with what Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said, Spider. He said that the U.S. is ready to act at any minute. The question is, ready to act with what, how, and on what targets?
Well, I tell you, John, I think what we're going to see initially is a strike. Limited is what it would be called, because it's going against an array of targets that have been identified which belong to the Assad regime in terms of their ability and enables that regime to conduct its war-making capabilities and to deliver the chemical weapons. Those are command and control facilities, intelligence facilities, barracks facilities, integrated air defense, even the Navy. And I think it's important that we realize that those strikes could be initiated immediately, because those target folders, as they're called, have been in place and updated as a matter of routine. The intelligence community does that routinely. So these targets are identified, and it's just a matter of telling the combatant commander, which is the 6th Fleet, and the Central Command, in conjunction with the European Command, to launch the strikes. And
the conventional wisdom has been, and Spider, I've heard you talking about this today, that they would use Tomahawk cruise missiles. Jeremy, let me pose this question to you. It's never just Tomahawk cruise missiles that have to be part of the consideration. They have to consider more than that, I imagine. And beyond just the missiles, what's the strategic objective here?
Well, John, it's good to be here. I think there are 3 key strategic objectives to any military campaign. First, to punish Assad for using chemical weapons. Second, to degrade his capabilities to make war against his own people. And third, most importantly, to reestablish some of that deterrence that has slipped and to basically hold at risk those things that he values. You mentioned the 4 warships in the Eastern Med. We've got Tomahawk cruise missiles on those ships as well as on submarines. We also have a lot more. We've got 2 carrier strike groups in the vicinity. The Nimitz is about 5.5 months into her cruise. She's in the Persian Gulf. She did a Bahrain port call earlier this month. But we also have the USS Harry S. Truman with its carrier strike group that just transited the Suez, went down the Red Sea and was near the bottom of the Red Sea at the port of Aden. We probably will turn her around, put her back through the Suez Canal, and put her back into the Eastern Med. She was at Cyprus earlier this month. She's probably going back there.
Even if we're not talking about manned strikes right now, you do give us the sense that they need to be prepared for the possibility for manned strikes at some point.
Assad could escalate, and our military commanders are going to want to give the president maximum flexibility. This will likely be limited and surgical in terms of the scope and the objectives. However, if Assad should escalate, and we should talk about how he might do that, if he should escalate, we're going to want to have other strike sorties available. We may want to have jets come out of Incirlik. We may want to have intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, eyes on the ground, either drones or satellites or other U-2 airplanes flying high above those integrated air defenses, to look down, give the president and the commanders a bomb damage assessment, help them understand what's happening on the battlefield, and maybe even use jamming and cyber technologies to degrade Assad's capabilities.
Let me go to Spider with the question that you posed here. How might Syria respond here? And is it just the Syrian response that the U.S. has to be worried about right now, Spider?
Well, it's not just the Syrian response. Certainly Russia has a big stake in the outcome, and certainly how this progresses over the course of the next couple of days, and a long-term investment in terms of their relationship with Syria. My concern is that a very surgical strike against these very precise targets will punish Assad, but I don't know how we're going to measure the success of that punishment. Clearly, what the administration is trying to do is decouple these strikes from Syria's ongoing civil war. I don't know how they do that. Ultimately, the challenge is, do you want Assad in charge down the road in Syria, or do you want al-Qaeda and its affiliates in Syria, and they've populated the insurgent groups that can get their hands on these chemical munitions? That's a very, very tough decision this administration has to make, and they need to make that as soon as possible.
Jeremy, I suppose that Assad could take it out on his own people. He could take it out on the rebels. He could take it out on his neighbors. Turkey is right there. And I suppose the U.S. also has to be concerned about Iran and what Iran's affiliates, say Hezbollah in Lebanon, might do.
I think that's right. I think we're going to be looking in the early hours and days of this about, look at what Assad does internally, what he does against Israel, what he does against Jordan, what he does against Turkey. And there, obviously, if there's a direct attack on a NATO ally, NATO may be more involved than they have been to date. I think you're right to point out that Iran has a lot of surrogates and proxies in the region. Their own internal intelligence service, the MOIS, could be engaged. The Quds Force, their highly capable paramilitary capability, could be engaged. as well as Hezbollah, which said they will fight to defend Syria to the death.
And Spider, I want to ask you a question, a common sense question that a lot of people have been asking me. The U.S. has been talking about this strike now for days. Syria has to be listening. Assad has to be listening to this. Every day that the United States waits here, doesn't that give Assad a chance to prepare?
Oh, it does. What it really tells you is the limits of American influence in that part of the world very much degraded over the course of years. What we say is not as significant in terms of what we do and the preparations we take and the very discernible actions that we've taken. What's important is that what we have given Assad is a hint in terms of what we're trying to do, and we've galvanized those forces, we've marshaled them, they're available. He certainly can read that. So that is a demonstration of our capabilities. It is his ability to read our administration's desire to execute the tasks that are necessary. It really gets back to who's going to blink first. So certainly he does have the ability to get ready, but clearly the United States has good intelligence. It will continue to improve those target folders so they can go very precisely against the necessary capabilities that Assad has and has demonstrated that he's going to use.
Right now it's escalating rhetoric in the coming days. It could be more than that. Spider Marks, Jeremy Bash, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.